So we're going to move on to item 7.3 and see how we do. Consideration of Recovery and Revitalization Plan for Lake County and American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA Spending Priorities Statement. CAO Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Deputy CAO Matthew Rothstein and I are going to present this item together. And then we also look forward to the comments from you and Supervisor Pyska, who both served on the committee with us that helped to develop this plan. As your board is aware, thanks to the tireless work of our extraordinary federal legislative representatives and others, Lake County has been allocated over $12.5 million in state and local fiscal recovery funds as a result of the passage of what you've heard referred to as the ARPA plan. That stands for American Rescue Plan Act. These funds can be used for numerous qualifying purposes, such as overcoming negative economic impacts resulting from the COVID pandemic. They can be used to support the recovery and revitalization of hard-hit communities. They can be used to fund public health expenditures associated with pandemic response, and as well for investing in water and sewer infrastructure. This really represents a major significant turning point for Lake County to have this opportunity. So the ad hoc committee, which I mentioned before, included Chairman Sabatier, Supervisor Pyska, myself, a number of department heads and county administrative and finance staff, and over a several-month period undertook the extensive process to identify needs appropriately matched to the funding allocations I just reviewed. And every county department head was granted an opportunity to weigh in on the needs they viewed as qualifying for the use of these funds, and they also shared their priorities with us. So the committee members agreed in general that spending should be intended to have a transformative effect on Lake County communities, and that should be our primary area of emphasis, since it's such an extraordinary opportunity to have this amount of funding, and that we should also look to prepare our local government organization to more flexibly and efficiently serve the public for the years to come. So for the priorities that we're going to outline here, we anticipate at this point that they will take all of the funding, $12.5 million and change. And unfortunately, not all of the needs identified can be met. But we do anticipate that this plan that we hope you will adopt today is really a starting point to get ourselves started. And we would anticipate being back before your board at various future intervals to make adjustments, because not all of the areas that we're going to review with you are fully fleshed out. It's going to take more work to determine how much funding is needed in certain areas. So you will see actual expenditures begin to come forward in your various budget approval processes, some of them possibly as early as mid-year budget, which you will take up in February 2022. So we're very excited to present this plan and look forward to your statements. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Matthew.
Thank you very much, Carol. It is my privilege to introduce the first three of four categories of action that drive these recommended American Rescue Plan Act spending priorities.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
Can you make that a little bit bigger for those in the Zoom room to be able to see?
Sure.
And Sam, can we make sure his volume is sufficient? It seemed a little low.
And the size is perfect.
Okay. And I can also speak up a bit.
Thank you, Matthew.
So first, we commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by building sustainable communities through housing and long-term planning. A $3.8 million investment is recommended in this category, serving the following Vision 2028 principles: continue rebuilding in all efforts to recover from our recent disasters and grow our economy and spur creation of quality local jobs. Priorities in this category of action include comprehensive housing strategic planning, enhancing support for housing priorities, promoting development of our construction trades workforce, and strengthening community partnerships to meet housing and related needs. So why these priorities? Every Lake County resident should have access to safe and affordable housing that provides a quality environment conducive to maximizing their ability to contribute to their community. Too often, we've taken a piecemeal approach rather than zooming out, systematically identifying our needs, and moving forward in a strategic manner. ARPA funding will help us end this cycle and target investments to add housing supply and rehabilitate existing homes. Secondly, we commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by removing barriers to childhood success and dignified aging. A $2.33 million investment is recommended in this category, serving these Vision 2028 principles. Invest in Lake County's richest resource, our people. Enhance public safety and promote the well-being of every Lake County resident. Priorities in this category of action include solidifying our senior centers for decades to come, strengthening services for children 5 and under, making library services even more accessible, filling service gaps in communities that don't currently have a library branch, ensuring COVID-19 testing and the vaccination availability in Lake County, and applying lessons of this pandemic to build a more resilient future. By supporting these priorities, we recognize that well-being is not something that we develop once and then have forever. It is a constant effort that requires services and supports at different stages of life. ARPA has given us an opportunity to help our children and elders recover from the disruptions of COVID-19 and thrive in new norms brought by rapid social change since 2020. Thirdly, we commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by acting now on water and sewer infrastructure projects.
Matthew,
A $3 million investment is recommended in this category based on the following Vision 2028 principle: improve our infrastructure. The priority in this category of action is completing a small number of qualifying infrastructure projects. The American Rescue Plan Act allows funding to be used for water and sewer infrastructure, and acting now on a few small infrastructure projects can make a positive difference without overburdening Lake County's ratepayers. For your awareness, Board, Scott Harder, our Special Districts Administrator, is here to answer your board's questions on water and sewer infrastructure projects following this presentation. And now Carol Hutchinson will present our fourth category of action. We commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by preparing to effectively meet emergent public needs.
Thank you, Matthew. I didn't mean to talk over you there for a moment, but I wanted to ask you to advance the sheet there. Thank you so much. Okay. Could you back up and show the one you just reviewed too, because we couldn't see that during your review, in case anyone would like to see that. What he just spoke of in number 3, it's sort of split between this page and the next page. So if you can scroll down just a little bit more. Thank you, Matthew. Okay. And so certainly last but not least at this point, how do we tune up the engine and become better able to meet the needs of the public? Clearly the public needs more from us than we have historically been able to deliver. And so what is recommended here in terms of priorities is continuing the modernization of customer service in a variety of ways, enhancing and hardening our information technology infrastructure, making public facilities more hospitable, and stabilizing our pension contribution costs. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that we have to be open to new ways of doing business, developing the capacity to flexibly respond, quickly reform practices, and provide the best possible level of service, despite whatever barriers may come, is a modern imperative. Technological threats are more numerous than ever, for example, and can threaten our business continuity if we are not sufficiently proactive. Institutional knowledge, understanding, and experience are also key to meeting emergent needs in our present environment. We need a workforce that is stable, nimble, and has the tools to adapt. Utilizing ARPA funding to support these critical areas of priority will help us to be more effective now and in the future. And back to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Carol. Staff recommends that your board approve this ARPA spending priorities framework today. Like other long-term planning documents, revisions may be brought forward in the future, but it is important that we have our marching orders in place so we can immediately work with departments to develop specific allocation recommendations. We want to thank all who contributed to the development of this framework, and that importantly included our chair, Supervisor Sabatier, and Supervisor Pyska. Before we consider comments from the full board and the public, Supervisors Sabatier and Pyska, do you have anything further to add?
Yes. Thank you, Matthew. You'll note that you don't see broadband investments in there, and that was something that we originally had planned, but in the spring there was talk of broadband resources coming from other places. And so as we wait to see how all of those unfold, we feel really confident that those needs are going to be met through other sources. But again, everything is going to be fluid for a little bit. I wanted to highlight some of the examples in the second priority, and that is removing the barriers to childhood success and dignified aging. So some of the things that we're hoping to invest in is the Help Me Grow software and enhancing home visits for First 5, funding a mobile library vehicle, COVID-19 response support, assessment of all senior centers in Lake County to set them up for future success, and purchase and renovate Kelseyville Senior Center to facilitate broader use and enhance community appeal in the same manner as the Middletown facility, but in a smaller sense. During our meetings, it was noted that we had a void in service in the Kelseyville community in District 5 surrounding library and senior services. So filling that void, we felt was a moral obligation brought into heightened focus through the lessons we've learned through the pandemic. So those were the priorities that I really felt were important, is to focus on our children and our seniors and use this opportunity to set both of those groups that have really, as we move through the pandemic, we saw how those two groups really need further support in our community. That's it.
Thank you. I really like how we started our conversations here. We kind of threw everything at the board, everything that was kind of a vision of what we needed to get to where we want to be. And we started out with a very large list. It was actually a very difficult list to go through, and really appreciate the work that Mr. Rothstein has done to really narrow it down into a very legible document, because it was kind of all over the place to begin with. We had conversations with some different nonprofit agencies. First 5 came to us and discussed what their needs were to see if that was possible for us to be able to support. And what I really see when I look at this document is government is not meant to build what our vision is. Government is meant to build a foundation for others to build what it is that we're going to need. We don't build businesses, things like that. We create the platform that promotes and is conducive to those types of things happening. And also providing a healthy environment where things are accessible in an equitable way is really important. I know that there was one that we discussed and is not on the list. And again, this list is kind of a moving document, a living document, in the sense that it's what we've put together for now, but as infrastructure funds get released, as broadband funds get released, maybe there's some things that need to be changed based on what our better understanding of what's happening with some of these bills. But I do know that there's a large conversation we did have with public health, which was the IFT problem. It's hard to know even what that would look like as far as a solution. That's still being reviewed. And it's hard to know what dollar amount would need to be placed on that. And so it is not on the list at the moment because we don't even know what that would look like at this moment in time.
Could you just clarify for the public
Oh,
that may
sorry.
not know IFT? We do, but
Yeah,
just
so thank you for that.
clarification.
IFTs is interfacility transfers, so that when you go to Sutter or Adventist Health, it is the potential of having capacity to move you from one hospital outside of the county to an outside of the county hospital. And it's an issue that we're working on. There's a lot of conversations regarding that, but we don't want to put things that are completely unknown to us until those conversations can actually prop up with options and solutions, and possibly something could come back to this list. But at this moment, it was unsure. I know that also the entirety of number one is very much in line with some of the conversations that are happening over at the EDTF, the Economic Development Task Force, because the Economic Development Task Force is not a task force that has a budget, and therefore this would potentially be some of the funds that could be utilized to tackle our housing issues that we wish to discuss and figure out how to resolve. I appreciate the document that's before us, and I can't wait to see how it is that these items are going to slowly morph into more concrete items. Again, it's going to take time. Some of these we can get started on right away, which is why it's in front of us today. But a lot of these is going to be a lot more discussions and a lot more conversation with our state and federal partners to figure out how we're going to be able to use these funds to leverage their funds to be able to really accomplish our tasks. It's exciting. It's definitely a blueprint for what our future will be. And I'm looking forward to continuing on this mission to make sure that these things occur.
Mr. Chair, I should add that these funds need to be allocated approximately 2 years from today. And that sounds like a long ways off, but it's not. There's a lot of work to be done to figure out how to best use these funds. And so that in itself is a tall task. And that's why we're so happy to bring this plan to you now, because we need to get busy.
Yes, 2024 is our deadline. And so with that, I'm done. Is there anything further from CAO Hutchinson or Matthew Rothstein?
Just thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all your work. Any comments or questions? Supervisor Scott?
Just want to show some appreciation for this. I know it must have been incredibly difficult to start with a list and get it down to this, because I know we all have our priorities and our passions that we work with. I'm just so thankful that you have added services for children under 5, because we know that if we can promote and do the work with our children, it's going to strengthen our families, and that just strengthens all of Lake County. So I'm excited to see that prioritized on this list.
And I believe, if I remember correctly on some of the numbers provided to us, we've lost 21 daycares in the past year and a half through this pandemic, which was one of the conversations we had with First 5, is how do we deal with that? What's the need? What can we do? So it was a great conversation, and absolutely, if the 0 to 5s don't get any resources, the 6 to whatever age are going to be that much more difficult. Any further comments?
I appreciate especially the fact that this is applying lessons of this pandemic, and then right above it is what Supervisor Scott just brought up, and then also the senior centers for decades to come, because we had so many issues at times with utilizing them. So I really appreciate that effort into it.
Yep. That was a big lesson that we learned. Our senior centers are not set up for success. And this is the opportunity that we need to take right now to make those changes, to make those improvements, to set them up for the next few decades. We know our senior population is going to continue to grow, and this is our opportunity to care for those people.
Obviously in support, I want to thank the committee and all that worked on it. Obviously, this is a big long-term vision task for us, and it's great to see the overall, 50,000-foot opportunities as we're moving forward. We know that other specific projects will come forward, but obviously our seniors, our elders, and our children are the most important assets we do have here, obviously, and infrastructure. We just had a big conversation on infrastructure, so I know that there are a lot of projects we're currently working on to go through this. just make sure that we take advantage of all those opportunities. I know there's infrastructure dollars coming down in other directions, but it's great that we have this fallback opportunity. If things don't come out the way we want it, that we have an opportunity to have another conversation to keep projects moving forward that have been on the shelf for a while and bringing those to fruition. So appreciate all the conversations. This is a great starting document, and we'll make those decisions as it comes to the board. So thank you very much for all the hard work. It was great to accept the check, but to understand the path that we're on to spend these funds in the most valuable ways here in our community is very important. So thank you to the ad hoc committee and all that were involved.
And I do want to mention that last week we were here and you mentioned the ARPA funds,
Yeah.
and I believe it was infrastructure related.
Yeah.
It's very vague as far as what infrastructure, and so I think that's the better way to go. That way it's not super specific. Whatever comes first that we can go ahead and support, whether that's through feasibility study or construction design costs, I think it will make it easier by having such a nebulous infrastructure portion of this fund to be allocated for. So, and if there's nothing else, then let's go ahead and open up for the public. And we have,
Mr. Chair, I noticed that the sheriff came into the Zoom room. So you may want to see if he would like to speak before you open it up.
and I forgot to say something. Thank you, Supervisor Pyska, for reminding me. I'm sorry, CAO Hutchinson, I didn't hear what you had said.
I said that the sheriff had come into the Zoom room and may want to speak before you open up for public
Okay,
comment.
let me go ahead and make my comment. I know that there was some request for, I'm not sure I have the right terminology, but
Premium pay.
premium pay because of the pandemic. And I know that in the past, we have done those types of approvals for fire disasters or just disasters in general. And what we found is it wasn't easy to fairly apply it across the board so that those who truly should be able to access it should, while others who should not have accessed it still seem to have the ability to do so. And I think we ended up in a position that we had not necessarily planned to be in. We listened, we discussed it, and in those conversations, we were also in the midst of working on our salary increases that were approved back in September, I believe it was. It's all
They were
kind of-
effective November 1st. yes.
Correct. And so we decided that that is a long-term change, and that the premium pay is just a short-term change, and we wanted to make sure and always aim for the long-term impacts, and making it easier for us to be able to make that happen for the right people too. So I just wanted to add that that was part of the conversation. It was requested of us to discuss, and we definitely discussed it at length. And so before I do open it up for the public, I do want to call on Sheriff Martin in case he wanted to share some words.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Obviously, a lot of work went into the creation of this plan. I got to say, at first glance, I was a little bit disappointed to see that there was absolutely no emphasis on public safety in this plan. After listening to the conversation, it's clear that this is a living document, and hopefully some of these priorities that have been outlined here can be kind of tailored to fit some public safety needs. In response to the pandemic, our systems have been strained. We have some facilities that are quite aging. We're in the process of trying to acquire, I think we're in the final stages of the Armory building, and that is certainly going to require quite a bit of funding that hasn't been identified yet, other than a small bit from rural sheriffs. But I just want to express slightly disappointed from my standpoint that there is not more of an emphasis here on public safety. We had a lot of essential workers, and I'm not talking about the premium pay. I'm talking about some of the infrastructure here, and I see that the focus here on infrastructure is for sewer and water infrastructure. And not that that's not important, but some of our public safety facilities, as well as the rest of our community or county buildings, are also in need of some dire repair. So I just want to express my gratitude for the hard work, but point out that I'd like to see a little bit more emphasis on public safety at some point in the future.
And just want to remind you that part of the cannabis tax, 30%, has been allocated to law enforcement. If you have not submitted a proposal to the Cannabis Ad Hoc Committee, I would suggest that you do so. But also, if you have an idea of what exactly you are asking from the group for this ARPA funds, I would say submit it so that we can discuss it within the committee as well.
Sure, I submitted it. I responded when the request came out, so it's in the hands of the committee.
Okay. Thank you for your
Thank you.
comment. All right, let's go ahead and open it up to the public. Betsy Kahn.
Thank you again. First of all, I would like to support Sheriff Martin's comments because I was disturbed to not see any suggestion in this document of some of the direly needed communication systems that we have seen time after time are very limited in their capacity during disasters. And we have for years been working with various agencies, including the sheriff and the Department of Social Services, to improve those capacities for those very important senior centers. I want to thank Supervisor Pyska for her comments, but I would also like to ask very, very urgently, would you please include some people in the definition of what you're going to do for those senior centers and those assessments? Such as myself, I have been a volunteer for the senior centers here in Lake County for 17 years. I'm extremely familiar with the Area Agency on Aging, the Older Americans Act, the Department of Aging at the state level, the contracts, the needs of the seniors, and the volunteers. And the last thing I would like to add is when you're going to deal with the infrastructure projects, we have already identified some very high-risk areas due to the factor hydrants. In some cases, they don't even exist. In some cases, they're out of repair or they're no longer even repairable. And I think that's a crucial risk reduction need. And I would surely like to see that something is included in your plans for that funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Carla Ritz.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. My name is Carla Ritz. I'm the Executive Director for First 5 of Lake County, and supervisors and staff members, everyone who is on that committee, we just want to collectively thank you, especially for number 2, removing barriers to childhood success and prioritizing early childhood, and that hugely important. For our work especially, our whole goal is that one day our success as a county will be measured by the well-being of our youngest children. And for us, that indicates that the people who are making decisions for our county recognize what's happening in those first 5 years and how absolutely critical it is to the success of our county in developing a workforce and in prioritizing the needs of parents with young children. So we are thrilled, and we hope that this passes and that Christmas will come early to early childhood and so many other areas that are included in the plan. And I just wanted to let you know that we are ready. You're talking about some of these things you want to get going right away. We're ready. So let us know, and we will bring our partners together, and we're ready to start working on any and all of the initiatives that we proposed for early childhood in our community and get those going as soon as possible. There were, as you mentioned, a lot of disruptions in childcare and preschool for our children. There were also a lot of babies born to families who had no baby showers. They had no family present because of COVID. There was just a lot of maternal mental health issues going on during COVID and still going on as people are incredibly isolated. So we are ready to get going. We hope this passes today and just offer our full support and thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see no further hands up in the Zoom room. Any hands up in the boardroom? And please come to the microphone.
Joan Moss, I want to repeat what Dr. Evans said. 33% of the people in Lake County are not vaccinated. I would expect this program to allow viewpoints from both sides in one story. And I know you think it's fear-mongering, Bruno, but I think that both sides of the story need to come out in order for truth to happen. Then we'll get a positive COVID response. Thank you.
Thank you. And that closes public comment and bringing it back to the board.
Any other comments?
Supervisor Pyska.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the Recovery and Revitalization Plan for Lake County and American Rescue Plan, ARPA spending priority statement as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Supervisor Pyska, a second by Supervisor.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Simon. And roll call, please, Johanna.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Sabatier.
Aye.
Was that an aye, a sixth aye?
Thank you very much, Johanna. And with that, we're going to start our lunch break right now.